a chance to introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about what you do now and a brief history. How did you get to where you are? I do want to thank first the audience for coming and joining us. This is a great opportunity for you guys to ask questions from the people who have come before you. And I hope you have come ready with a laundry list of questions, really hard questions to ask them, because I think you're ready to answer them.
Are these all science majors?
Yes, we have chemistry majors, biochemistry majors, chemical physics majors. Anybody else?
Undeclared?
Undeclared? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so I believe hopefully David will remember that he's supposed to be calling on Central Time and not Eastern Time.
The audio, I can't hear what you're saying. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine. Can you guys hear
Yeah,
Cameron?
the microphone, the audio feed from your end is not very good.
Okay, we'll try to turn it up a little.
Okay, I can hear you fine now.
Okay,
I guess when you're closer to the microphone.
I'll stand closer to the microphone, and then if there's a question, I can repeat it.
Okay.
All right. So just to introduce you to our panelists, Kevin Rainey, class of '86, is now the chair of the Biochemistry and Molecular Biology Department at UAMS. We have Patrick Fraley, class of 2000. Is an ear, nose, throat doctor here in Conway. Nathan Schlitz, also class of 2000. Is a patent examiner, lives here in Conway as well. And Nicole Hart is a general supervisor at the
Pain treatment centers.
that's what it is,
Of
Pain
America.
Treatment Centers of Arkansas?
America. All of America.
Okay. And Cameron Crane is currently a postdoc at Boston University, doing a little bit of teaching, a little bit of research, and is currently looking for some faculty positions. So I'll let you guys get started. Kevin, do you want to give us
Sure.
a little bit rundown of you?
Right, so again, I'm Kevin Rainey. I'm at UAMS in the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. I've been chair there since 2010, and before that I was a professor and then had gone through the ranks from assistant to associate. So I was at Hendrix and graduated in 1986, long before most of you were in existence, so it's hard to believe it's been that long. But I was an undergraduate chemistry major without really knowing exactly what I wanted to do. So of course, like people who don't know what they wanted to do, I was on my way to medical school, and or thought that. But then I did undergraduate research one summer, and then on in the fall with Dr. Tom Goodwin, and that totally changed my outlook. And it was the first time when my future was absolutely clear to me, at least at the point of knowing I wanted to go to graduate school. So I didn't even bother applying to the medicine or pharmacy. Went to graduate school at Vanderbilt University in chemistry. It was terrific, just like the research with Dr. Goodwin. Things went really well. And did a postdoctoral fellowship at Penn State in biochemistry, and then came back to Arkansas in 1995 at UAMS and started my own lab. So my experience at Hendrix basically was terrific, and was one of those things that you can honestly say life-changing, career-changing, that sort of thing, based on the opportunities that were presented to me by the faculty at that time. And so I guess one thing I wanted to make sure that all of you understood, you probably already know this, but just in case you're wondering, if you can perform at Hendrix, then you can perform anywhere. You can compete with anyone at any college in America at any level, because the competition as well as the quality of the education you're getting here easily sets you up and trains you and prepares you well for what's to come. Now I teach a lot of medical students as well, and so for the medical students as well, Hendrix prepares you really well. I guess the physicians would know better than that, but from my perspective as a teacher of medical students, Hendrix students are always well prepared for first year medical school.
Patrick Fraley, so class of 2000 from Hendrix. We were chemistry majors. that's kind of all we had back then was chemistry. Then went straight to med school at UAMS. I graduated from there in 2004. I did my residency training at WashU in St. Louis at the Barnes Jewish Hospital. I spent 5 years there, and then came back here when I finished, and I've been practicing in Conway ever since. So I do ear, nose, and throat, basically ear tubes, tonsils, treat dizziness, sinus problems, ear problems, holes in eardrums, all that good stuff, head and neck cancer, thyroid problems, big gamut of things. But the short spell in my life is I love what I do. I do everything again. If I had to start over and choose the same paths, and Hendrix has been an excellent way to prepare for everything.
I'm Nathan Schlentz, also class of 2000. When I left here with the chemistry degree, I went to Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. Got my PhD in organic chemistry. Got a job at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, so that's where I am today. Straight out of graduate school. I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, lived there for about 6 years while doing the job, and then got to move and work from home. So now I'm back to Conway where I have family, which is really nice. And Hendrix was great. It really did prepare me well, I believe, for a career in what I do, and I'll talk about that in a little bit if you guys are interested. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything as well.
I'm Nicole Hart. I was a VZ girl and I married my Martin man, and I've always wanted to say that. I was a chemistry major, and when I was in your seat, I was in the boat of, well, I know I don't want to go have any more school, so I need to get a job. And so what I did was I showed up in person to US Compounding here in Conway, and they didn't have anything for me, but they pointed me in the direction of Tribute Labs, also in Conway. And I showed up there in person, and a couple interviews later, they gave me a job that wasn't ever posted. And then one thing led to another, that company got shut down, and then my boss referred me to this random guy, said he has labs, whatever that means. So I called him, and he had a job available, and it wasn't posted anywhere. So I tell you this because I really want to push the fact that go somewhere in person. Like, ask your professors and try to get someone who knows someone who has a job available. And right now I work at Pain Treatment Centers of America. I run their drug testing lab, and it's with LCMS, so I'm playing with those all day long. And I love my job. There's a lot of freedom in it. I can come and go as I please, and it pays well, and you can get a job, a good job.
Cameron, your turn.
I hope you can hear me now. So yeah, I'm here at Boston University in the postdoc faculty fellow program, which is for postdocs who have a primary interest in teaching. So I get to do research as well as lecture the students, design labs, teach labs, write syllabi, write exams, and that type of thing. And it's been a really good experience. Before this, I was at the University of Arkansas doing my PhD. I was there for 6 years. I was doing synthetic inorganic synthesis of nanoparticles. And prior to that, I was in Dr. Hatch's research group. So it's nice to see the old chemistry room again. Sorry, I would like to bounce off the thoughts that the other panelists were saying, but I wasn't able to hear what they were. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, well, thank you. We are missing one of our panelists, but we are going to continue. We're trying to reach out to him, so he can get him to join us. Maybe some technical issues are going on, but at this point, I think you guys know a little bit about our panelists, and I'm sure you all have questions, so I'm happy to open it up to the audience. If I have one brave soul who wants to ask the first question, you're welcome to ask any of our individual panelists or general question to all of them. Yeah.
So like, is it possible to like have an MD and like do research on the side, like biochemistry? So how would you like do that?
So I mean, there's MD, PhD programs at UAMS, for example. That's kind of going to be your biggest way to get into the research side of being an MD. Other than that, there are some doctors that I've worked with and did their MD and they still kind of get into research. That a lot goes through the residency program. So where I did my training up in St. Louis, we had either a 5-year or 7-year track for ENT. The 5-year track was just clinical. It's you do your first year of surgical internship and then the 4 years of ENT surgery after that. The 7-year track, what we did was the year of internship, then we did 2 years of lab research, and then the 4 years of clinical after that. So that kind of gets you into doing research when you get out. That's more geared towards those that want to go into academic medicine, like to be teaching more in faculty at UAMS or other types of med schools. Yeah, there's lots of options for that.
Yeah, just to dovetail what Dr. Fraley mentioned, there's also honors in research. So it's not a formal PhD program to go with the MD, but it's an additional level of work and input that students participate in where they go to a lab and pursue a research project, but it would be during the summertime between the first and second year, and then during the 4th year, a little bit of time is made available as well. And so they complete research, and if they can get a publication or something like that out of it, that's great, but it's not required, but it's formal research, and I believe the program's called Honors in Research. So it's just kind of a scaled-back version of an MD PhD, but it still gives you a chance to do research, and it can enhance your application for residencies and things like that.
Any other questions?
All right. So are there any lessons that you learned at Hendrix that you still use in the field today or in your job today, or that you think could be applicable to any career choice that we might have?
I'll speak up on that one. So I didn't explain my job at all. So I'm a patent examiner. So inventors, they're creating stuff all the time and they want to get a patent for it so that they have the rights to it so nobody else can make a profit off of their invention. So they file an application with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. That's where I work. And I get it and review it and then either issue the patent or not. I focus on pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals because of my chemistry background, but there's all different fields at the office. But my day-to-day job is reading and writing. Every day, that's all I do. I read and I write. And at Hendrix, I learned every class I took, you did a lot of reading and writing. They really taught you, no matter what your major was, no matter what your background, you have to know how to write to get out of Hendrix. And it's paid off. I do it every day. I do it all the time. And it's been a big life lesson. It's helped me a lot going forward outside of Hendrix. It really did. It's paid off a bunch. I hated it while I was here. I was like, why do I have to write a paper in this class or that, whatnot? But it really has paid off.
I will say that academically, it's just very well-rounded, and so that applies to just about anything you do. There's a lot of stuff that you pick up just from the atmosphere here that I guess back then I didn't really think much about it, but the further on you go, you just realize how much you picked up. It's the, we call it wit, I guess, when we were here, but this is it's stuff you can't really get, or you don't get in big potato school educations. You just kind of know more about what's going on. You're more socially aware of a lot of things. You're more, I guess, socially accepting of a lot of things. It just prepares you for a better experience once you get out. So it's not just the vocational type stuff, it's your life in general.
Actually, Dr. Hatch's advanced analytical class gave me really good preparation because I work with LCMS right now, and in her class I learned about exactly what is going on in all the different parts of the instrument. And so to be able to take that into my new job, and then the training for my new job was easy. I was like, I know how this works. So yeah, that class was really great.
Thanks. I learned from the best. Dr. Braun taught.
Thank you for the shout out.
And I studied my slides before my interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I still
hey.
have them.
Good to hear. Does anybody else want to respond to that? Lessons you learned in
Well,
college?
I think, can Cameron hear us, or?
Okay, what's the question?
Yeah, anytime you want me to repeat, I'm happy to repeat. So the question is, are there any lessons you learned while you were at Hendrix that have helped you as beyond Hendrix, which is gone?
Well, yeah, I think just at that time in your life in general, if you work hard in college, it's going to pay off. And I think Hendrix especially paid off for me. Personally, I don't have a good control experiment, so I didn't go anywhere else. But it seemed like grad school is going to throw a lot of obstacles at you, and I hadn't encountered anything like those when I was at Hendrix, but I learned how to adapt and to keep going and make it out. So yeah, I think I heard a little bit about Dr. Hatch's instrumental analysis course, and I also remember that being extremely useful for me in graduate school, because lots of times in grad school, I mean, the professor in charge doesn't know how the instrument works. I mean, maybe they do, but it's really unclear when they give you an assignment that maybe they haven't even thought out exactly what needs to happen for you to get reasonable data. And so troubleshooting and getting good data is really impossible if you don't have a fundamental understanding of the instrument.
Did y'all hear all that? Everybody should take my class. So, is there any other questions, or do you have a response?
I'll just respond briefly that
Okay.
you learn how to write at Hendrix, as the other panelists have said, but I really learned how to write more so from my organic chemistry professor than from the other professors on campus. When I got back my senior research paper, I realized that every sentence I wrote started with a 1, 2, or 3 letter phrase, although, however, in this case, and it just read terribly. And no one had ever pointed this out to me, that I write this way, until finally Dr. Goodman said, you do this on every sentence. Change it up a little bit. Anyway, it was a good lesson, because I was able to sort of take that into heart and improve my writing, but it took the organic chemistry professor to kind of point this out to me. So pay attention to your professors in chemistry for writing, because they know what to do.
I think we're enjoying all the shout-outs.
What words of wisdom would you suggest to someone going in for like first interview, or what to put on resume, or what made you stand out for your first job?
Okay, what I didn't know when I was in your seat that I know now is that there are going to be plenty of qualified applicants, but they're going to hire the person that they want to communicate with every day and see every day, and someone who's just pleasant to be around, who plays nice with others. So when you go into your interview, try to let your personality come through a little too. Yeah, that's what I think.
I was going to say the same thing.
No.
Be positive. I mean, when you go into your interview, be confident, be positive. Hendrix has prepared you fairly well. I mean, don't go in negative or thinking you're not going to get it. Go in thinking, I've got a good chance at this. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to put myself out there, and good things can happen.
In preparation for this panel, I interviewed my boss, and I asked him what qualities is he looking for in an employee, and he said someone with a moral compass, someone who doesn't complain, because if they complain in the interview about something in their life, then they're going to complain every day at work, and that's not fun. And someone who plays nice with others. So, yeah.
I would second that last statement. So I'm probably the worst interviewer in the world, but I interview people now for me, and that's kind of what we look at is, are you personable?
Mm-hmm.
Are you complaining about things? Or you want to hear lots of positive stuff when you're interviewing. You don't want to hear all the bad things that have happened to put you where you are. So I mean, that's actually a really good statement.
And if you haven't thought about it, I think there's career services on campus that can help you with your resume building. I would recommend that. I know even coming out of graduate school, I wasn't certain how to build a resume properly and what to put on it and so forth. Use the resources available to you. Hendrix has great resources. They can help you prepare something that looks like a quality resume and will get you past that first step, which is just they look at a piece of paper for a few seconds, either throw it away or say, yes, I'm going to have an interview. And so use all the resources available to you.
And career services is available to all our alumni as well. You know, if you ever go searching for another job. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Rebecca?
Okay, so what was your experience like when you applied to grad school, and also like what are some tips, general tips you have for that?
Cameron, did you hear that one?
Part of it, I'll need to repeat it.
Okay, she asked, what is general advice you can give to someone applying for graduate programs?
General advice. I'm ambivalent about my general advice. I guess I was told, if I remember correctly, not to work for a new professor, which may be good advice in some cases, but sometimes these new professors who don't have tenure, you know, they're going to have a lot of ideas, a lot of energy, and if you're going to work for one of those professors, you need to have a lot of ideas and a lot of energy. And if you come up with a lot of research results, you are able to publish. Your research is going to, you know, yield research for students after you, and you can be famous that way. But that being said, it's kind of a risk to work for an untenured professor who's starting up their lab. If you work for a professor who's just starting, who they're always going to want lots of grad students to, you know, but their lab's not set up, and you're going to lose a year or two probably. So yeah, my advice is to think carefully about the type of research group that you're going to end up in. I remember Dr. Braun gave me really good advice that I'll pass on, which is when you're doing your interviews, your touring after you've been accepted, find a grad student, and when you're alone with them, ask them what they wish they knew before they started grad school there.
Anybody else?
I can add a couple things. There's a lot of studies on what correlates with a good graduate student. And so graduate schools are trying to figure this out. And to be honest, they haven't figured it out because there's very few individual markers that correlate with good performance in graduate school. And I think the reason is probably because graduate school requires skills that undergraduate education don't always require. And the laboratory skills, for example, you can do undergraduate research, but sometimes you don't get as much experience there as you might need, and so on. But the interview and the letters of recommendation track as well as GRE and GPA with regard to how well or how successful a student will be in graduate school. So I guess the advice is to take it very seriously in terms of the interview. And I think some of the comments were be positive, and I agree completely. And be confident, because you should be. You've trained in or your education is in an excellent place, and so trust it. You'll have as good a background as any other, or better background than other people interviewing for the same positions. So the confidence and positivity are really important in the interview. But as far as what tracks, is it your GPA or your GRE? There's no clear-cut answer at this point. So that's why interviewees are taking that 1-hour interview or that half-day interview, they're taking it very seriously because it's as good a measure as any as to what type of graduate student you'll turn out to be.
I want to interrupt just a second. We have our final panelist has finally joined us. Welcome, David. Can you hear us?
Yeah, how's it going? Sorry about that.
That's okay. We understand. The current question is, what general advice would you give to a student applying to a graduate program? I suspect you might have something to say about that.
Yeah, sure.
Can you briefly give us a rundown of what you've been doing since you graduated? Just a quick introduction to you.
Yeah, so graduated in 2011 and did the dual degree engineering program. So I headed straight to WashU in St. Louis and got my bachelor's in chemical engineering. And after that, I went and worked for about a year and a half, both as a process engineer and as a software engineer. And then I finally headed back to grad school, so I'm now just about to finish up in year 5 at MIT, working with Professor Jesse Kroll. And yeah, so as far as advice for grad school, I guess, to me the biggest things were definitely reaching out to professors ahead of time as far as the application process goes. So scheduling a time to talk or meeting them at a conference or something if that's in the cards. And then also, I know one of the things that helped me both decide that I wanted to go to grad school and helped me get into grad school was doing research at the undergraduate level. So both at Hendrix and at WashU, I did quite a bit of research across a couple of different research groups.
Thank you, David. And welcome. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you, yeah.
So is there any other questions from the audience? Yep, right over here.
Were there ever any moments in your like career at Hendrix and then your career afterwards where you experienced doubt, and then how did you overcome that?
Yes. Yes. Well, actually, something that Dr. Grahn said stuck with me all this time. She said, companies are looking to hire good employees, and you are a good employee looking for a good company. So, I mean, you will find a job. Are you looking for a job or for more school?
I'm pre-med right now.
Okay. So I'm going to repeat the question for the folks online. The question was, did you ever experience doubt after you graduated, and how did you deal with that?
After we graduated from Hendrix?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like almost every day. Yeah, I was in a synthetic lab that was very demanding. Every day I had to just attack the project with all my energy until I got results. It was tough. But yeah, you gotta keep going.
Yeah, I'll second what you just said. Yeah, it can be rough. Depending on kind of, what you're doing, whether you go to grad school or try and enter the workforce, it can be pretty tough. Especially in grad school, I think it's fairly well understood or known as it's kind of a long haul. So, you're looking at, 5+ years, and it's, the entire purpose of it is to kind of do something that no one's done before, to contribute something new to the field. And, in order to do that, you're going to fail a lot. Some more than others, but kind of figuring out, how to think about that in a way that allows you to kind of, A, get through the day, B, take the good from the failures, and really understand, why something went wrong and how you can approach it differently the next time. I think that's the best I can give.
Thanks, David. Anybody else respond or?
I was just gonna say, I would agree with everything said. I mean, doubt is normal. You're always gonna have doubts. You're gonna wonder, am I doing the right thing? And you're gonna have hard days, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have good days. You're always gonna question yourself. But I think that just helps you grow as a person. I think you'll learn through those times of doubt, is this truly what I want to keep doing? And through self-reflection, you'll push through it. You'll find the good in what's happening, and you'll persevere. I mean, you just kind of push through it, and you try to set your track the way you want it to go, and you fight through it, and you do what it takes. You're going to learn a lot from it. You're going to have setbacks, but yeah, you try to keep pushing hard, keep moving, and that's life.
Johnny, thought I saw you with a question.
I have a more fun question, if that's okay.
We like fun questions.
I was wondering what your guys' extracurriculars were like, and how they impacted you after you left Hendrix, if they did.
So the question was about extracurricular activities, things that you did outside of class, and how did that affect Life Beyond Hendrix?
I personally think extracurriculars are awesome. I mean, I think they're critical. They keep you sane. They give you something to think about aside from the stress and the pressure. I played tennis while at Hendrix. My wife played volleyball, and I was really involved with the volleyball team as well. So when I left Hendrix, I kept up with both of those. I played volleyball on men's teams when I was in graduate school. Even in graduate school, you can do intramurals, so I kept up with a lot of intramurals. I mean, just not only my own peace of mind, but socially. You make friends that way. When you go on from Hendrix, it's like starting over. You're going to have to meet new people. It's an easy way for me to make friends. Even in the workforce, I joined a softball team working with colleagues, and it was a way for me to meet people I didn't see in the office right next to me every day. So it was just a way to network, a way to relieve stress, a way to have fun. And I think it's a big part of, it should be a big part of everybody's life, having hobbies and extracurriculars that give you a chance to get away from everything that's going on in your head and get back to it with a fresh mind when you're done.
Short answer, I was basically, music was my extracurricular activity. Did a lot of piano. I had kind of a partial scholarship here at Hendrix for that, but I still play it now. I still enjoy it, and sometimes fun. I was doing it. I think they stick with you.
So I played a lot of basketball in high school, not very good, but I played a lot. And then at Hendrix, I kind of got away from it, and then in graduate school, I started playing again. And it was a real great stress relief, because as some of the other panelists say, sometimes you're doing experiments that nature never intended to work. And so you bang your head against it a few times, and then you got to be persistent, but eventually you've got to know when to say, okay, that's enough. But if you have something else that you're doing that's routine and something you enjoy, then it's worth taking the time to do it, because it keeps all those other moments stronger. When you're actively doing experiments, you can focus more and put more energy in because you've had the outlet. So for me, it was playing basketball 2 or 3 times a week as a grad student. My advisor was very gracious in allowing me to do that.
And if you find yourself in a new city and you don't know anybody, that's a good way to make friends, and you need friends, so.
I think I remember Cameron was a swimmer, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I was able to hear a little bit of the discussion, so I think this is about the extracurriculars. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in, just the organization of your time helps, and also really being physically fit is going to really pay off. I mean, it's good for your brain. I know in grad school when I didn't have time to run as much as I wanted to, but I really got into running when I had time, and I really think that it helped my work in the lab. Because the nature of my work, I'd be on my feet most of the day, teaching, and then also making my nanoparticles. And there was definitely a period where when I had good results coming in, I knew I could get a paper, but the work had to be done in a couple months. And I was able to translate some of the energy that I'd been giving to my running regimen, and it really paid off. I was able to, work hard for a lot of hours because I was in shape. I think that pays off too.
Yeah, I'll follow up and say basically the same thing. So I played baseball when I was at Hendrix, and that was pretty much mostly 100% of my extracurriculars at that point. And then when I left, I also got into running quite a bit. And so I do a lot of distance running now, and I find that helps me with my work quite a bit. I do a lot of my best thinking when I'm running, or even just to, clear your head or whatever. And I would say that's one of the huge perks of grad school is that I can kind of just leave whenever I want and go do that. So if it's 10 a.m. and I'm struggling with something, I can just go for a run and come back, which I couldn't do when I was working, didn't have quite as much flexibility. So that's kind of nice.
Any other questions? I know there's more questions.
WashU, and I actually had the chance to do some research there, but like, how should I utilize the contacts that I've made, like at WashU or like anywhere else, like in grad school or med school, like how should I maintain a professional friendship or acquaintanceship with those peers or mentors?
So the question has to do with professional contacts and networks and how to best utilize those and maintain them as you progress through your career.
Okay, the world's different now than when I went through Hendrix in grad school, so social media was almost non-existent back then. I mean, we had to find each other at conferences or call them on the phone to ask how the research is going and so forth. So I think it's gotten a lot easier probably to maintain some of those contacts. You can keep up with students that you were in the lab that you did summer research with, or when you go to grad school, I'm still friends on Facebook and other media with people that were in the lab with me, people that were in labs next to me, and that I socialized with, had extracurriculars with. I maintain those friendships through social media. I think it's helped. I think if you're looking for a job and you know somebody who knows somebody through social media, maybe something will pop up that you wouldn't have heard about otherwise. So I think it is important to maintain those relationships, but it's difficult sometimes to keep up with people that you don't see very regularly. But
I would say if you see something happening in someone's life, something important, like your professor just became a grandparent for the first time or whatever, take that opportunity to congratulate them, and that way you stay on their radar a little bit. And they remember who you are, and maybe you catch up, and then in the future, you've had that communication and you can go back there again and ask them for help if you need.
And face-to-face is always good too. Every time I'd come back from Conway, just come to the department and say hi to new professors, and it's just any chance you get to see old professors or students that you were with is valuable time to just keep up those connections. And you never know when that'll come back to be beneficial in the future.
Just, I will agree that you want to try, for whatever means you use, whether it's some sort of social media or just email, you want to make sure to try to keep those relationships. And you can establish those relationships in something like grad school and medical school fairly straightforward, your colleagues in medical school or your colleagues in grad school. But when you go in graduate school, you often go to national meetings or regional meetings, so there are opportunities to meet people who are doing things remarkably similar to what you're doing. And those are people you'll want to talk to, and you want to talk to those people over time. And then you'll find out that some of those same people are people that you literally spend your whole career visiting with year after year at the same meetings, or every couple of years at the same meetings. And so maintaining those relationships, the people who can maintain those relationships in between meetings, I think really, really benefit from it. So if you can do it, even if it's not something that comes natural to your personality, you should make the effort to try to do it anyway.
David or Cameron, do you want to add to the question?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything I'm hearing. I mean, email is great. Of course, you've got to know the person that you're communicating with, but generally you can just keep in touch with them from time to time. And it's always going to pay off. There's a high chance of paying off. Connections are maybe the most important thing you're going to get out of grad school.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is definitely one of the huge perks of grad school is building up that network of people, both from your lab, from your department, but also like, I'm at a pretty big school, so meeting people both even just at MIT, but also down the street at Harvard and whatnot. There's a lot of kind of like for atmospheric chemistry, which is my kind of subfield. Boston is a huge area for it, and so there's 4 or 5 different universities, and every now and then we get together and have food or drinks or whatever. And that combined with again these national meetings, which are a fun way to network and to keep relationships alive with people that may have been in a lab that then moved on somewhere else. But it's also changed changing in some ways. I mean, so I, for example, write a lot of software, and especially kind of open source software, and so there's this whole other kind of internet-based community that kind of just pops up organically, and has been really helpful. So I go to India a lot for my research, and so those people specifically have been very helpful in setting me up with meetings and introducing me to people that are far outside my normal network to meet with. That's been really helpful.
I invite them to alumni panels. So, any other questions? Yeah.
I have one specifically for Dr. Fraley, but also for other people too. But when you were deciding what field of medicine you wanted to pursue, were there specific aspects of your education in chemistry here at Hendrix that you wanted to keep consistent, or did you have any of those that you wanted to maintain as you kind of figured that out? I guess for all the people that decided their careers as well, was there certain parts of the chemistry learning that you liked a lot?
I don't think that really dictated where I went in terms of specialties with medicine. I think chemistry is actually a really good major to prepare you for med school. Once you get, I mean, there's biochem is one of the big things, but pharmacology too. It's all stuff you can apply the principles that you learned in some of these classes. And I think I was prepared a lot better for that than people that went to some other schools. So I guess the short answer though is I don't think there was any specific thing that directed like my field of ENT that I went to.
Other questions? I'd like to ask the panel, what was one of your major challenges you faced, and how did that influence your career or your perspective about your career? It's a harder question. No challenges at all. You guys are good.
I'll start, but I'm not really sure where this goes. But there was midway through my graduate career, I had reasonable success, but then I ran into a problem that I couldn't solve. And then I thought I solved it, and I had used some really valuable reagents to solve the problem from a lab in the UK that had sent these valuable reagents to us. And then I realized I'd used them all wrong, and they were one of a kind. And I had to meet this advisor at a meeting, and he wanted to have dinner and talk about it. And so I was sitting with this real famous guy from the UK, and he was very, very relaxed, very calm, and he basically just walked me through, here's what we're going to do to fix this. And he wasn't critical, he wasn't angry, he might have been angry inside, but it basically made me realize, this isn't the end of my career after all. I can just try this again and follow this instructions, and everything worked out, and everything did work out wonderfully. But I guess the hard part was, had I not met with him and sort of faced the problem head on, I might have decided to just say, okay, I'm just going to get a master's degree, which is not a bad thing, and get a job. But this particular professor kind of held my hand and walked me through what was a pretty big problem of using up his reagents and doing the experiment wrong. But anyway, so maybe I guess the lesson would be to give your colleagues and give your supervisors a chance to help. And so if you have a problem, just go to your supervisors. Get the help. More often than not, I'm sure they will. It's in their interest, and your interest, and everyone's interest to solve the problem and not just get angry about a mishap.
A major challenge that I experienced was when I first started my job right out of graduate school, started a new job at the Patent and Trademark Office. It's rooted heavily in the law. Everything I do is based on legal aspects of patents and how they're issued and how they're maintained and things like that. I didn't know any of that. A lot of people I was working with had law degrees as well as a bachelor's in some type of science. And then they knew the job. I did not, so there was a big learning curve for me, and that was a major challenge. But talking with other people that had started around the same time as me and were trying to learn it at the same speed I was learning it, trying to keep up, I think just socializing, networking, trying to talk to my supervisor as frequently as I could. Am I doing everything right? What am I missing? What am I doing differently? What should I be doing differently? I think just open communication helped me a lot.
Any other questions from the audience? You guys are awful quiet.
Yes. What was your favorite class that you took at Hendrix?
Organic. I'm crazy.
That was my favorite class.
So, no offense to anybody, but I actually really liked a lot of my religion classes that I took. So I loved the chemistry, and that was kind of what kept me going. But I just enjoyed some of these other, more abstract things. That this is your chance to learn that here. You're going to get that when you leave. So, pick some good electives to go along with your major, I should say.
There were a lot of classes I really enjoyed, but maybe one that stands out is an analytical chemistry instrumental analysis course that I took that was taught by Dr. Warfield Teague. And I really enjoyed that class. Not sure that much more than a lot of other classes because I enjoyed a lot of classes at Hendrix, but that one stands out.
Cameron, David, what was your favorite class at Hendrix?
Favorite class at Hendrix? I don't know if I have an answer ready for this.
Think very carefully.
They can't see who's here, it's like.
Quantum physical chemistry. Yeah, he saw David Hale in the back.
Yeah, I'd have to go with, probably either advanced analytical or quantum. So I was chemical physics, so I build instrumentation now, so I really like, taking my physics knowledge and being able to apply it to design instruments.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, well, I do want to say that I think when I was a student, I really liked longer and way more I liked.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat that.
Oh, organic used to be my favorite, but it's not so much anymore. synthetic techniques I learned in organic I use all the time, so there's that.
It's a really good
Yeah,
question.
and I would say I wasn't much of an organic person in undergrad, but at the grad school level, like environmental organic chemistry it's probably my favorite class at the grad level. So it kind of changes.
As it should as you take more classes, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Have any faculty questions from the back? Yes, Dr. Curran.
What do you wish you had taken at Hendrix?
Ah.
Was there, not so much about coursework, but was there an experience or something that you ran out of time, or you said, no, I'm too busy, something that you like, I would have done that.
I've got an answer for that. I did not swim my senior year. I wish I would have swam anyway. I wanted to focus on academics. I think I could have done it, and I wish I would have swam all 4 years.
I think data analysis / computer science. So that's something that I picked up along the way. But at least for my field, I cannot stress how important it is to be able to take, fairly large data sets and work with them, to the point where, Excel is a tool that just can't keep up. So I probably wish I would have learned those skills a little bit earlier on.
David, we use Igor now in my research group. You love that.
Yeah, okay. I am the one non-Igor user, I think, in atmospheric chemistry.
No.
I know everything in Python and C.
Anybody else?
I wish I would have taken taking more art classes, just something completely outside of my normal field. I took a couple, I enjoyed them. I'm not a great artist, but they were always fun. Just something to change it up a little.
I wish I'd have had more fun and done more social activities. I was so laser focused on academics and I mean, looking back, that's where I could probably made some changes.
I agree with Dr. Fraley, we probably spend a little more time playing, whatever. At the time, I don't know if I felt like there was time to do that, but maybe that's what I would do looking back. Not too much more playing, but more balance.
I was the reverse. I wish I would have been more laser focused. I thought I played a little more than I should have.
All right, we have a few more minutes. I think there's 5 more minutes left. So maybe after this next question, if there's a little bit more time, our audience can stick around if they have more questions for our panelists. I'm happy to stick around for a few more minutes. But I'd like to ask the last question, if that's okay with everyone. I am really curious what one major piece of advice that you have for our undergraduates as they leave us from Hendrix. What one thing do you wish you would have known as an undergraduate before you entered the real world, as they say?
Okay, I would say that grad school is not school, and not everyone has their best interest, and not everybody has your best interest in mind like they did at Hendrix. Everybody takes care of you at Hendrix.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the most important thing is not be afraid to ask for help, whether it's for an introduction to someone who's hiring or to a professor at a university you want to apply to, or to reach back out to your professors at Hendrix. I know I've done that several times, both chemistry professors, but also some of my physics professors. And, in my experience, I think they're always more than willing to help out. Same with other alums. Hendrix is a pretty unique place. And I think you'll find that if you, have the opportunity to reach out to anyone that, is an alum, they will be more than willing to help you in any way they can.
I didn't have schooling after Hendrix, so I'm just going to speak on behalf of going straight into the workforce. I honestly believe that what got me my job was showing up in person, and I think it says so much about you, like that you can dress yourself and you can look someone in the eye and have a good handshake, and you're a nice person, and it just puts you so much ahead of all those other resumes they might have. Gives you a real leg up. So seriously, y'all, if you want to go into the workforce, go to US Compounding. Go to SWA Pharmaceuticals in Little Rock and show up and ask for a job. Tell them who you are and what you're looking for, and they can, if they can't help you, they can point you in the direction of someone who can. So, yeah.
That's really great advice.
I think both the academics and the environment at Hendrix shape you and really change who you are as a person. I think that when you leave, it's important to remember that. So not all environments are as collegiate and cordial and just inviting as Hendrix is. So keep the goodness that you gain here.
Trust the education you received. It's really, really top notch. So when you go out, you're going out from a really good place, and you've got a really good start. And so just trust it. Know that that's the fact. And so there's not something out there that you can't tackle that other people can. If you can do well at Hendrix, you can do well everywhere else.
Same as everybody else. Have confidence in yourself. Know that you're going to fail, but also know that you can achieve what your goals are, because Hendrix has prepared you, and if you can get through Hendrix, you can get through just about anything.
tell you how reassuring all that stuff is for us to hear. I definitely want to take a second and thank our panel for joining us today. I hope you guys have gotten all of your questions answered. And if you haven't and have more questions, I'm pretty sure they're open for you to reach out to them and ask more questions. So let's give our panelists a round of applause. And David and Cameron, thank you so much for joining us from far, far away in the East Coast. Come back and see us sometime.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So
Thanks.
much. I would like to say with everyone here that we're hiring. And this job is not posted.
Show up in person.
Yeah, so we're looking, well, I guess my boss is looking for someone to basically do what I do right now, which is prep samples, get them on the LCMS, do that LCMS maintenance, and it's a lot of pipetting, grade hours, you make your own hours, and I don't really know when this job is going to be available, sometime this year, but not immediately. So if you know anyone, professors, you guys.
We'll send them your way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for coming.